There are a couple of other implications of global trends I wish to take up. The university will no doubt retain its role as arbiter of academic worth, but with a difference. For in this century, goals and targets will no longer be fixed as before because of rapid advances across all disciplines. Just when we think we are nearing our mark, it moves farther away. Moving targets thus change the meaning of laggard. An intellectual laggard is not the one who lags behind, neither the one who stays put, but the one who doesn't move as swiftly as the advance of knowledge. It will no longer be sufficient, and I think neither should it be permissible for departments, colleges, campuses to simply coast along in our second century. Academic leaders who find comfort in the isolated quiet of their offices, or are buoyed by the absence of discussion or debate, or who mistake the stony silence of faculty indifference as implicit support, will never take us forward. UP's second century has no place for laid-back leaders who move only when prodded or threatened. To attract and encourage the best leaders, we also need to rethink our search process. The matrix of candidates' strengths and weaknesses, which is usually the end product of the search process, actually ought to be just the starting point. In what context are candidates' attributes perceived as strengths and weaknesses, and relative to what goals, needs, or direction? A perceived weakness could, in a different context, or relative to a certain thrust, actually be a strength, and vice versa. There is too little value added by search committees that are not allowed to exercise any judgment beyond the enumeration of candidates' attributes. In the final analyses, the kind of leaders we desire will depend on what we aspire for as an institution of higher learning and as a community of scholars. For example, the presidents of the world's leading universities were studied in order to answer the question, are the universities, the best universities, led by top researchers? The universities were taken from the 2004 edition, the next slide please, of the Shanghai Jiao Tong University ranking. Now, these criteria, they're unbelievable for us because they look at the Fields Medal and Nobel Prize, of not just faculty, but even alumni. Okay. There's only one Southeast Asian country who made it there, and that's Singapore, and not even in the top 100. I think NUS is in the second 100. Nanyang must be in the third 100. No other Southeast Asian country. Anyway, the top 100 universities were studied. The study counted the number of each president's scholarly publication citations, rated the numbers against disciplinary citation norms, and then correlated the normalized figures against the university's ranking. The pattern that emerged is as follows. The higher the global ranking of a university, the more likely that the citations of its president are also high. Heads of the top 50 universities, for instance, are 2.5 times more highly cited than the bottom 50. A president at a top 20 university is cited nearly 5 times more than a leader in the bottom quintile. In short, the study found that although, quote, a simple link between the position of a university and the research history of its leader does not explain causality, the results do, however, suggest that being a good manager and leader is enhanced in a university context if a president is a successful researcher. I cite the study to stress that in light of the profound changes in knowledge and learning, and at an unprecedented pace, the type of leaders we want at any and all levels, and the scale of scholarship we expect from them, will in the end depend on what our collective and institutional ambitions are. So, as with the question of access, we once again return to our purpose. What do we wish to become in the 21st century? Thankfully, it isn't my task to answer all my questions. Whatever we decide, and we must do so with deliberate thought and discussion, let us keep sight of our mission to advance and share knowledge in and beyond the classroom. The university, after all, is not a gated subdivision. It is and always will be engaged in the life of the community, the nation, and the world. We celebrate our successes at a time when everywhere around us, at home and in the world, voices of optimism struggle to be heard amid the wail of human suffering and the deceptive silence of apathy or despair. The paradox of celebration amid tribulation is a stern reminder that we belong to a public community larger than the academic republic, more than a community that supports us and to which we are answerable. It is a community to which we are wedded, good times and bad. It concerns me that our students have become more self-absorbed. Okay, listen, children. And less caring about this broader community. In my GE class last semester, most of them said they are moved to act only when directly affected. Since they rarely read the papers or listen to the news, they cannot get affected by what they do not know or do not bother to know. A combination of hard times, parental pressure, desire for security in the face of an uncertain future, and disenchantment with today's leaders have caused the young to look upon their degree as little more than a job ticket. As a result, grades have taken precedence over learning. Their real world has shrunk to their family and friends, while the one world they can freely venture into is the chat room, Friendster, and other social networking sites where they control the shift in boundaries of anonymity and familiarity and decide whom to let in and out. There is, of course, no point developing a sense of humanity that connects one only to the tiny radius of relatives and friends or to the self-created virtual world. The sense of belonging to a collective larger than ourselves, our families, our immediate circle of friends and colleagues, is fundamental to our humanity. As our history and that of humankind demonstrate, the most significant and uplifting human successes have been those born out of collective action. What would one's personal success mean amid a sea of people wallowing in subhuman conditions? Indeed, what kind of humanity is it that selects the individuals it can relate to and deliberately disregards the humanness of others? I hope this kind of inward pragmatism, heedless to the needs of others, is just a phase of youthfulness. My senior students assure me they think differently from the freshmen I cited. Do not think for a moment that I blame the students entirely for thinking this way. Such heedlessness could well be a reaction to or a product of a deeper pathology that engulfs our society. It is not my purpose to break down this social pathology into its anatomical parts, but allow me to offer a different take on the matter. Foucault explains that every conceptual apparatus sets its own restrictions of what is and isn't possible, and within these limits develops its own sense of normalcy. During American rule, for example, the logic of imperialism deemed it rational to postpone political independence while we were perceived to be unready for it, and in its stead, enjoy the benefits of progress American style. It was not rational and therefore not normal to insist, as the Katipunan and subsequent revolutionary societies did, that freedom is indivisible in all its forms and expressions. At the turn of the 20th century, Filipino society was classified into, quote, poor and ignorant at one end, and, quote, rich and intelligent at the other. Unthinkable it was to switch the colonial pairing around. Poor and intelligent, rich and ignorant, simply was not possible. And so each generation, each society declares its own meaning of normalcy according to its world of possibilities. I hold that the task of the university is to depart from the realm of possibilities and the boundaries of normalcy it creates, and instead explore what historian Michel Rolph-Trouillot calls the unthinkable, or, quote, that which one cannot conceive within the range of possible alternatives, that which perverts all answers because it defies the terms under which the questions were phrased, end quote. To return to the Oxford question as an example, the thinkable frame juxtaposes social justice against a world-class university, presenting the two as the only available options in the matter of admissions. The unthinkable, on the other hand, would turn the question around and challenge its underbelly. Why these two choices in the first place? Thinking the unthinkable will be the university's primary challenge in the 21st century, in every discipline, in every field of endeavor. This challenge will demand not just a shift in our mental inclinations, but also new instruments of thought, concepts, methods, frameworks that will enable this shift to happen. Oftentimes, we do not realize how normalcy, that is, keeping within established and comfortable limits of possibilities, has become the hidden curriculum. Because, as Foucault again points out, people's thoughts are basically shaped by rules or assumptions they are not always aware of.